All right, welcome everyone. I have Jacob Zuppke here, President, CEO of Whisker, amazing company that we're going to get into. And the punchline here is he's a product guy, came in working with a founder. He came in at about 7 million and turned this business into, as of 2022, 180 million and growing. So it's going to be a incredible story, product story. Before I get into Jacob's story, just thanks for joining us today on the 8-Figure Product CEO podcast. Practical strategies that you guys can use in your own businesses, hosted by myself, Luke Peters, and you guys can go to apexceo.co to see my story, business I grew, and what I sold to private equity. You can learn more about it over there. So head over to apexceo.co. Okay, so Jacob, I gave you the quick intro, but why don't you give us a little bit more in your bio?
Well, thanks for having me, Luke. I'm Jacob Zuppke, president of Whisker. I've been here for 10 years this month-ish. So really exciting time period. I got to join the company when we were just 25 employees, and I got to partner with the founder and the rest of the team on helping to really bring to market the new version of our product in 2015, rebrand the company, build a new fancy responsive website, the cool thing at the time. And over the following years, move us more towards a D2C focus versus that of a omni-channel focus. And 10 years later, I've been able to grow into, I think, 7 different roles. Now as president and CEO, leading a team now of 650 people, and it's been one heck of a ride.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing story. I mean, legitimately. So what I want to do is, we have mostly, CEO founders listening to this and focused on physical products. And what's cool about Whisker and the company that Jacob's leading is you guys are making all of this in America. You heard that 650 employees. Yesterday, we're in the middle of a trade war right now. So this is being recorded on April 10th. So we can dive into a little bit of that, about the manufacturing side. But as I remember, you have over 100 engineers, over 400 and something people in your plant, huge plant up in Wisconsin, state of the art. So that part of the story, this isn't just a marketing deal. Like you guys literally day one making this thing from here, competing with all the international companies trying to sell in and compete against you guys. So let's start sort of, here at the beginning. You came in, Brad's the founder. You come in at 7 million and start scaling the company. So, talk to us about what started, and then you could even jump into sort of your aha moment on marketing, but tell us that story.
Yeah, I remember having not been a cat person when I first joined in about March of 2015. I remember reading a review right after I first met Brad from it was a man who left a review on the website that said, "A litter robot saved my marriage." And I just remember thinking, oh, what a clickbaity title. And it was real and it was authentic. And it was all about how the litter box was very contentious in their household and how he moved in, or the wife moved in with the boyfriend, or vice versa. They moved in together. And this litter box was always a point of frustration because one person had the cat, one didn't. And I just remember I was dating a person, now my wife, who had a cat, and it was new for me as well. So it was very relatable, and it was something I could grab onto as a marketer. And I was like, I get it. I understand the pain point. It wasn't until I got a cat about a year and a half later, when my girlfriend moved in with me, that I fully embraced cat life and was able to go all the way in. But it was after that moment that I started to be able to tell the story better. And in 2015, we were getting ready to launch the Gen 3 model of the litter robot. Worked most of the year on rebranding the business from Automated Pet Care Products Incorporated to, at the time, Auto Pets, now Whisker. And we shortened some of the naming convention that we had. We rebranded the website, brought it to be way more modern, better use of colors, better use of fonts, better use of photography, elevated photography. I won't say as functional as we had it then. And really brought to life the next version of the brand, the launch of the next version of the product. And in about September of 2015, I had an aha moment for the first time at the company where I started realizing that I was following all these cat pages on Instagram. And I was obsessing over what they were posting. And it was before the word influencer was a word that's used for what is now an influencer. And I decided we would partner with all these social celebrities, and we would launch on December 1st, 25 social celebrities giving away 25 litter robots. And December 1st, 2015 came, and we took off running. And we hit $1 million for our first time in a month. Our website traffic was about 8 to 10x any previous month in history. And we had that like, oh my wow moment. Our manufacturing quickly had to learn how to keep up. We built up too much demand, and we had to learn a lot going into 2016, where the company ended up growing by 80%. And that growth continued for the next couple of years.
Awesome. Influencer marketing. Love it. Yeah. And that's, it's funny because on my company in New Air, we did that about 2017, 2018. So we're a couple years behind you, but back then it wasn't, I mean, I guess maybe by then it was called influencer marketing, but it was nascent. It was all new. It was almost like, it's sort of like affiliate marketing in a way, because I'm used to doing that back in the day. It's like, okay, people are talking about my product. That's like an affiliate almost, but different. Hey, before we get in, Jacob, could you just really briefly describe the product? I guess make sure everybody that's listening understands what Whisker is.
Yeah, so Whisker is a maker of litter robot, feeder robot, and other exciting new products coming down the pipe. But the litter robot is a platform for cat parents to have a fully automatic self-cleaning litter box at home. The reference point of the litter robot 3, it was the most modernized version of the self-cleaning litter box, and we had brought that to market in 2015, and then in 2017 we updated that to be the first ever connected litter box that had an app that could tell you how often your cat was going to the bathroom. And then the litter robot has continued to evolve, now has a fully integrated scale. We know the duration of each visit, how much your cat weighs every time they go to the bathroom. And we are now able to start delivering anomaly detection, other exciting new features that are coming down the pipe as well for our pet parents that are actively connected.
Okay, that's more info than I want to know, but yeah, it's a connected world, so people love that data. Awesome. So yeah, what a unique product solving a unique problem made here. Well, I want to get into that, but we're just talking about influencer marketing. So I want to get to actionable things for business owners. What do you look at as, okay, that was then. How about, we'll go with this. I want to know your 3 KPIs, your top KPIs. But before we do that, that was then influencer marketing. What about now, 2024? Is influencer still huge, or, you guys doing a little bit of everything? What's working?
I think influencer is getting back to its original roots. And by that, I mean true influence. So I think what's happened over the years is you've had all these creators and influencers build up followings, but not all those followings are engaged. Along the way, people have hacked the different algorithms to build up their followings. And ultimately, if I'm a health influencer who is, focused on health, and I built up all these, people who are following me who may not care about that, the engagement level with those groups are way down. And so I go back to true influence. I watch my wife and how she shops, and she follows these specific people who may be into fitness or diet or health or something related to how she lives healthy. And that's how she gets a lot of her best practices for things that are interesting to her. We've got 2 young daughters at home. And so for her, she's shopping based on some of her favorite influencers and how they shop based on their decor and their style. I think we're getting back to the core of influencer marketing, which is finding partners that have true influence and people that really have built communities. And I think you're seeing that as these influencers are even dropping their own brand lines now. And they're so successful because of it, because they have influence with their community. It's not just about follower count, it's about true influence. So to me, that's the state of influencer today.
Yeah. No, and so does that mean that influencer marketing is still your best or favorite channel?
It is an area that we're leaning more into whitelisting and paid than we are just organic reach, because with your Meta platform and your YouTube platform, your standard organic is not getting the same reach that it once was without pay to play. And so we're trying to find organic partners. The one thing we haven't wavered from in all this time is we only partner with creators that are actually using our product. We will not just do it to do it. We really believe in the authenticity of being a Little Robot user, and that's true still 10 years later.
And then how about paid platforms, Meta, Google, and then email, growing your email list, affiliates, and then anything else that I left off? Like, how are those channels all equally important, or is one perform better than the other? What do you guys see there? Because, by the way, before we go on, you guys are, I think, like 70% direct to consumer. Is that right? 75%. And for the audience, meaning their website to the consumer, not meaning, because a lot of people will group in their Amazon sales to that. So you guys are like a D2C powerhouse.
Well, thank you for the kind words. I think, yes, to answer your question, we are still primarily a direct-to-consumer website. We are still in the education phase of the category, which for us means we're still creating a lot of awareness around what a self-cleaning litter box can do for the household. We think a lot about it from the lens of dishwasher, 50, 60 years ago, when a product marketers had to come out and tell Americans, buy a dishwasher and take up this huge chunk of your kitchen on something you've been doing by hand for a long time. We see a similar opportunity today in changing consumer behavior. So still very much about education, which for us, we believe we can do very well through our direct-to-consumer site, as well as our retail partners, but much of our early high-funnel education done on our direct-to-consumer site. In terms of channel mix, Meta and Google are two biggest partners that we still use. Probably not that unfamiliar to many of our listeners here, but I would say the way in which we do it, we're very authentic in our content, tons of UGC content. We're doing a lot with white label content where we're running ads off white label partner accounts. In YouTube, a different theme. I think we're doing a lot more education on YouTube, whether it be through pre-roll, mid-roll, or otherwise. Lots of education for people that we know are somewhere in the funnel. I would say Meta, we're using a lot for high funnel. YouTube and such, we're using for mid, low funnel, as well as Meta. Email versus SMS. SMS has grown to be a really strong channel for us. Oftentimes outperforming when you think about a broadcast versus drip campaign. So drip campaign, I think email still makes a ton of sense. But for our broadcast where we're sending out a message like a bundle offer or 0% financing, we're seeing a lot of great success with SMS.
Yeah, well, that's right. I left off SMS. And in order to build those things, I mean, you got to be opt-in. So that just goes back to, building a great, D2C channel. So with that being said, what are your top 3 marketing KPIs? What are your favorite numbers, the numbers you live and die on or rely on?
Yeah, CAC is real. There's no question about that. But I view marketing as a percent of total revenue.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
It's how I've always measured it.
Yep.
And the reason being that every channel works together. And I think in the world that we live in today, where tracking is harder and, third-party data can be, I'll call it very claimant, where each channel wants to claim a lot of effort and credit for that sale. I think for us, we look at how all the channels work together. It's not to say we don't look at each channel's individual performance and the CAC by channel, but I view it as a total whole. I think if I turned off Meta as an example, I may not feel the effects immediately. I might feel a little bit, but I can tell you with certainty 90 days from now, given our price point and given our funnel and how long it takes for someone to convert, it's not going to show up tomorrow. So if I judge it based on my CAC today, I may be making short-term decisions short-sighted decisions that may affect me 90 days from now. And as I talk to other hardware brands that also have a longer funnel, if you think about connected fitness as a great example, you may not have run out and buy $1,000 piece of connected fitness for your home gym tomorrow. You may think about it for a few months. Well, you might fall outside that 90-day cookie window. You may fall outside of their targeting. You may jump from device to device. It's really hard to measure when you have a longer funnel versus selling a t-shirt where the decision might be a couple days. You might get a retargeting email and come back and purchase because you just forgot to buy that $40 t-shirt. And I think in our case, as a $699 product, it does require a little bit more education. So for me, I view it as a total percent of rolling revenue. And I view it that way. And I update that quarterly. So if I come in a little bit high in Q1, I'll maybe lower a little bit in Q2, not so much that I'm affecting my following quarter though.
Yeah, and this is now you mentioned e-tail. I've been going to e-tail forever, and amongst other, back in the day, you had all these SEO conferences, and a lot of those have gone by the wayside. But attribution was always the word, right? And attribution's always gotten harder. Obviously, your strategy is working, no doubt about it, with your growth, but it's always a hard nut to swallow. So let's just go to John or Jane Doe, the business owner, and they're spending 15% on marketing, let's just say, of total, 15% on the P&L. And how do they know that, 15% or 10% is the right number? You could sort of run an A/B test, but it's pretty hard to do that on a business with all these other things moving around. You've got some attribution here and there. Like, how do you think about that?
It took us a while to get to the percent of revenue that we're at, and it took successes under our belt. So when I first joined the company, we were spending a lot less then than we are now as a percent of revenue. And the founder was a lot more stringent on what that number was. And at the time, it was about 7 to 8%. I will say the number is not that number anymore. And what I did was I showed some wins under our belt. So going into 16, I jumped that 8% to maybe 10%. Then I jumped to 12%. Then I kept doing that. But what ultimately ended up happening is we got scale. We were able to find those balances along the way where it didn't necessarily affect our bottom line, but it allowed us to operate differently at a different level of scale. And for us, it took time. It took probably 5 years to grow up to the level that we are today in terms of our percent of marketing spend as a percent of revenue. And it came after some wins. And I would say our biggest unlock along the way was video marketing. After we cracked the nut on how to tell our story better through short form and long form video, we got a lot better at our marketing. And then with respect to attribution today, we have a variety of tools that we use, from holdout tests to attribution models, using different SaaS products to help guide, and then also using our own gut intuition. I think that you can only rely on tools so much, and then you have to be the marketer in you to also make a gut call on what is and what isn't working and what directionally you want to bet on.
Yeah. And then you probably have to really dial in your conversion rate, because you're like, okay, if I'm paying all this money, what A/B testing can you do to make sure that, okay, that message is going to actually work? So tell me about, how do you guys think about conversion optimization? Do you have your own team? Do you outsource some of that, and what's worked for you?
So all in-house right now, and we're the way in which we're doing, I'll call it CRO, we're testing bigger projects. We just did like a 3-way test on as low as messaging, 0%, and then just our standard bundle offer. So 3 different offer types that we're presenting to 3 different groups and then following them through our funnel so that they were seeing that messaging everywhere. And ultimately, we're finding bigger wins by doing that versus just changing the color of a button. Not to say that's not important, but I think for us, we're still trying to find those bigger wins. And then something I've done, right or wrong, best practice or not, I've redesigned our homepage quite a bit in my decade here. I think I've done it, I want to say 7 or 8 times, almost once a year since I joined here. I think that when you systemically change it, you can have some bigger wins than just smaller changes, but it's based on all those smaller changes in order to get to the big change. So that's something that I've done, which I think, right or wrong, it's continued to help us move forward. I think our brand has continued to evolve as well, which has required that.
Yeah. And I find this stuff so interesting. So tell us about, so you said all in-house. When you mentioned 100 engineers in the past, are some of those engineers, on the e-commerce side, or are those laid just on product side?
So we have approximately, I think it's like 90 something full-time product engineers. Then we have several engineers in our manufacturing facility as well that are there for our assembly operations. And then separately, we have our development department, which is our IT org. It's around 25 people. And the IT org oversees all of our web experiences, whereas our engineering org oversees physical product development, software development, firmware development, electrical engineering, and such like that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's incredible. So you're a marketing guy. How'd you come in and figure out all this product stuff? That's like a whole different world.
Born out of necessity and great people around me. We started hiring, when I joined, we had 1 full-time engineer except for our founder. And in about 2017 or 16, I hired one of the engineers who joined us along our journey. And then we built a small team around that. And going into maybe 2019, 2020, I think we were maybe 15, 20 people. And then over the last 5 years, we've grown that pretty significantly. Most of that growth over the last year, we've gone from about 50 to 100, give or take, betting on where we're taking things with our continued product evolution and our doubling down on making the current products in the market even better through our app and through our firmware and through other continued iterative changes, because most of our users are connected.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so how about what can you say to folks, or what can you share as far as like what platforms you use? I mean, anything that's relatable to other business owners. So maybe software. I mean, when you're doing conversion, are you using Optimizely, or are you guys using your own backend stuff? On a website, is there something that you found works, or is it your own thing? And then even business systems, the software stack is often interesting for folks to hear.
Sure. So on the web front, we're a Magento house, and we have been for about 10 years. I think if I was starting a new business today, I'd start on Shopify. I think it's an easier platform, no question. I'm sure that's not a surprise to anybody here. But once you're kind of built on something, not to say that it's impossible to move off of it, and it's something we always look at with fresh eyes. If anything, I think we'll move to a headless front end, and then maintain elements of our back end, and then think about what that means longer term. Front end software, we're very fond of Measured for some of our MMM and MTA. We're very, very happy with Bloomreach platform for our CDP email, and kind of an integrative hub for us as well. And then Attentive, as far as I'm aware, best in class for SMS. And we've been building with Attentive for a number of years. On the operations side, we actually built a middleware that really runs our entire operation. So being a D2C company and a manufacturer, back in 2016 when we started to scale, there wasn't a lot of off-the-shelf software, which at the time felt daunting to build an ERP and customize it as a manufacturer to sell direct to consumer. It wasn't out of the box at that time. And so we ended up building a middleware that essentially every order that comes through our system goes into our, we call it Whisker Ops, and goes into WOPS, and it's all processed through there. All of our back-end zoning, kitting, quality, assembly operations, everything. It runs our entire plant, and then it feeds all of our data back into our ERP. So It's been a really fun journey building something as you continue to evolve. But as we change up our assembly line, for example, we've got a group of developers that they can essentially just modify it to meet the needs of our new assembly line flow. So it's been really helpful.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, that's super interesting. And yeah, Shopify is easy, like you said, but Magento does offer some, I guess, additional flexibility or scalability that you guys are taking advantage of. That's interesting. So what advice? So you guys have grown, but again, you started there at the beginning. So if you're talking to other entrepreneurs, 5, 10, 15 million, not just e-commerce, by the way, it could even be manufacturing or even home service. I know that's different, but a lot of home service companies really, really lack marketing. But yeah, just curious, advice or just common themes that you seem to be advising others on, that are important nuggets for their business.
Yeah, I think I probably would have found this to be a fluff answer before I was doing what I'm doing now, but product market fit.
Yeah.
I say that because I think as a marketer, I think we all think we have superpowers to market everything, but I think every great marketer also knows that when you have a phenomenal product, your marketing can just amplify so much better. You have so much more reach capability, so much more longevity, and your job does in fact get easier when you have a phenomenal product. So I think for us, continuing to double down on what the customer really needs. So when I said that we continually to improve the product, I think we've released a firmware update every month since we launched the LR4 in 2022. Almost every single month, we've released new firmware. We continue to make the product that someone bought 3 years ago better because the person who's buying it today, they benefit from that. And the person who bought it 3 years ago, they get invested in Whisker because they know that we're here to take care of them. And I think long term, as we continue to bring new product to market, whether it be in existing categories that we've continued to iterate for a long time or new categories that we enter, people have a level of trust that we're going to make their product that they buy years before better and better and better. So I think for us, product market fit, truly listening to the customer. Me personally, I still respond to, I'm going to say 3 to 5 customers a day. It might be more than that.
Really? That's awesome. That is so cool. That's a great practice.
And my email is super public. I am very active on Reddit. We have a 40,000 person subreddit in the Litter Robot community. And my email could be found in hundreds, if not thousands of locations now on Reddit of me dropping comments saying, hey, it looks like you need help. Shoot me an email at jacob@whisker.com. And I escalate them immediately. But it allows me a chance to read their message, see if they've already engaged with our customer service team, which is almost 100 people, and the ability for me to truly understand how we're delivering for our customer. And it causes me to go and talk to our team very often, product engineering, CX, whatever department, around what I found and what I heard, just to make sure that it's known elsewhere. So I think staying true to your customer and listening intently. And then I think from a marketing and growth perspective, doubling down on what works until it doesn't work anymore. I think that we've continued to lean into the things that we know work, tried and true. And no matter what fun new tricks come up or what new platforms come up, we continue to double down on things that we know just work and work very well. And then we have a budget for all new testing as well.
And I was going to ask you on that because product market fit is brilliant. But not everybody, well, I'm not going to say not everybody can do that, but sometimes it's harder. Let's say they released a product, they don't have the funds, they don't have the engineers. Version 2 of the product might be a couple years from now, or it's a home services business, whatever. It's a company that doesn't have that ability to make they have the product that they have. And so I'm sure there's more they could do maybe with their messaging to find product market fit. But so I guess your point number 2 would be double down on the marketing. Is that the other key area or anything else come to mind?
I think customer service, I think as you just mentioned, home services, I think if we all think about our favorite contractor or our least favorite contractor we've worked with at home, it's all related to service. I think the output and the end product is oftentimes the same. And one of the things that I always find interesting, and I think everybody has their own differing view on it, but I often ask marketers, what's your favorite airline and why? We're all buying the same thing. We're buying a flight. Now it's the airline, the experience, the marketing that influences what direction, of course, and whether you live in a hub or not. But I think all these experiences that we have, that they tie back to the customer service and how we feel when we're spending money with one of these providers, whether it be home services, and in my example, airlines, physical product. I think your customer service is just, it's so important. And there's a reason why great brands like Chewy, who entered a very crowded market, they've been able to be so exceptionally successful because of their customer experience.
Yeah, no, that rings true, because especially for homes, I'm just bringing up home services because, that's on this, we're talking products, but there are a lot of folks just in home services because there's so many of those businesses. And what's the first thing you do? You look at the reviews, right? You go to Google, you go to Yelp for your product. People are going to go to Google, or they're going to go to wherever your reviews are syndicated. So, that's sort of the final output, so to say, of your customer service, along with like the UGC and all that, reviews and those types of things.
And I think when you build something fanatical, it shows up. And I think that's our Reddit thread. We have 40,000 people in there who have opted to join that. As far as I'm aware, we've never solicited our customers to go and join that thread. That's organic. And our best customer testimonials come from Reddit, and our best feedback comes from Reddit. Like, if you truly listen, your customers want to tell you how to get better and where to double down. And I think that's just so important. And even though it's so simple, it's also really true.
Well, actually, there's another point. Just originally, my company, we started out with HVAC and thermostats. Okay, this is back in the day. Well, nobody is, excited about their air conditioner and thermostat, right? Later on, we got into wine, beer, and stuff like that. So I think another thing, and this is just for people in the product ideation stage, is like, if it's not crowded, pick a category with excitement, enthusiasm. I love digital, photography, right? So if you look, you could find digital camera reviews, threads, people talking about it online all over the place. So finding those categories like yours, with pet lovers, where you have, people who just love to share information, those are great categories to be in.
Yeah, I think too, for us, it would also be, go deep into an audience. And in our case, we've gone cat. I think me personally, is I've listened to so many people ask, why not dog? And it's just, we see an opportunity to make life with cats way better. And it's already pretty great just having a cat, but we take away the parts of cat parenting that aren't as ideal. And I think that in our case, we want to continue to double down and triple down on that. Not to say we couldn't do that for dog eventually, but we're 25 years into being a really great cat company, and we want to keep indexing on that for the cat parent that has long been ignored, where a lot of brands will move to dog because it's a bigger market. And while it is a bigger market, we believe that the cat audience deserves a company like Whisker that's really indexed on that.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to wrap it up here with the last question. I'll give you a second to think about it though. So that's going to be the best advice you ever received. Okay. But before I get to that, let me just share with the audience, head over to apexceo.co. I have an exit readiness test. So a lot of clients that I work with, everybody wants to exit because they're stressed out and they want to sell their business. And actually, you guys did find an investor. So maybe we'll talk about that first, Jacob. But everybody wants, every founder wants to sell their business eventually. So anyways, over at the website, I got an exit readiness test. You'll get a score and some ideas about kind of where you stack up against other founders. Okay, so Jacob, back to you. So actually, before we hear the advice part, let's hear about that investor, because that is, everybody wants to hear those stories.
Yeah, we were very fortunate that in 2018, when we thought about bringing on a partner to buy out the founder's father, For him, 18, 19 years into his journey as the founder's business partner and father, and having never brought in an outside capital partner, we were very fortunate to meet our current partners today, who, as we went through the search, we really hit it off with them. And it was one of those things where at the time it wasn't our highest value, wasn't our lowest value. It was a fair value. But it was the right people more than anything. And 5.5 years later, I think often people are surprised when I talk so positively about my partnership with them, because we went into it with a unique structure. And 5.5 years later, I am so happy to be partnered with them. They are really great partners. They've really made an investment as me as CEO, as a first-time CEO, and willing to give me the level of autonomy that I needed to help shepherd the company through these continued transformations of going from when they partnered with us, 99 employees, to the 650 that we have today, a 30,000 square foot plant to a 250,000 square foot plant, a small dinkier office to the 50,000 square foot headquarters we have now. And they've been my supporting partner and advocate and real strategic board along the way, and supporting me while also allowing me to run the business with a ton of autonomy. So I think picking the right partner is more important than just the value. I think getting to know them at the personal level for me was really important. As we talk about it internally, we dated for 1.5 years before we got married. So we didn't rush into it, and we took our time, and it allowed them to see us execute on all of the things we said we would execute on, for them in turn to believe and to see and to trust, which in turn gave us a ton of autonomy. So
Yeah, no, that's a great story. And I, working with the right, and there's a lot of good groups out there. I think a lot of them get a bad name, but there's a lot of good groups. Just briefly, in your case, how did you guys get connected? You guys didn't run a process. Did they just find you and you guys it was just sort of that one-on-one conversation, or were there bankers involved?
yeah, we did use a middle market bank at the time. And it was very helpful at the time for the introduction. Once we actually met them, I ended up, and probably a little out of character, untraditional, I don't know what word I'd use there, but I ended up taking over most of the conversations, because our outlook was, if we're going to have a partner, we need to know that we can get to the finish line with them, and not, kind of this middleman in between. Not to say that the banker couldn't have done it. It's just, it was our first time ever partnering with an outside group as a founder-led company. And so we really wanted to see if we could do it with them. And while we definitely kept of course, the bank involved in part of the process, we led it directly with them. And I'm really glad that we did. I think it helped us frame up what the partnership would be years later.
Yeah. And probably that speaks to your team, because those things are hard to do. You probably, finance and ops, and, because there's a lot of information gathering. So yeah, congrats on getting that done. That is pretty awesome. Okay, cool. So let's wrap this up. Best advice you've ever received?
My best advice was for me as a leader, and it came from my mentor, who happens to be a CEO of a large global company that I was fortunate to meet and become friends with his son 30 years ago. And through my teenage years, I would go into his office almost every year and just pick his brain. And as I got into my early 20s, I'd be able to pick his brain. And when I called him for one of my most important meetings that I ever had, he said, "You talk too much."
Oh, that's funny.
He said, you need to learn how to get your point across and be done. And so he said, "I want you to put a Band-Aid on your finger. And I want that to be a reminder to you that you need to shut up." And it was honestly some of the best advice I've ever been given. And I now tell people, whether they show their stress in a large group, or they crack under pressure, or they have the same problem that I did, and often still sometimes do, where I over communicate, I tell them to put an imaginary band-aid on their finger and find their version of that. And to be able to just let that be a reminder to take a beat, process, and maybe respond later if you have to. And my version of that on my computer says take a breath and be nice. And I got it printed with a Cricut machine and put it right on my MacBook, because it's my small reminder every day to just take a beat and remember that the person that I'm talking to, the group that I'm talking to, that I need to remember their point of view, remember where they're coming from on something, and relate to that, understand that, and then respond. So to me, that's the best advice I've ever gotten, because it changed how I think about how I operate.
Perfect. And I mean, that relates to me. That relates to all of us type A business people, right? So, we all and over explaining and been there, done that. So I'll remember that Band-Aid idea. That is a cool idea. So great story. Jacob, how can folks connect with you? I guess you already gave out your email earlier.
Yeah, so if you have a cat that poops, I'd encourage you to go to catpoop.com, which redirects to our primary website. But the Litter Robot is a life-changing product, and I absolutely encourage any cat parent out there to look at it. There's a reason we've got over 100,000 reviews and the number of 5-star ratings that we do. If for some reason you need to reach out to me directly, it's jacob@whisker.com. Happy to respond.
Awesome. Jacob Zuppke, awesome story, great company, Whisker, and proudly building in America, which is super pertinent with the time we're talking about right now. So thanks for sharing your story, and take care.
Thank you.